Goosen. We have Dina Alexander. Um, taking over our leave for Carrie is Kimberly Grunding. We have Rebecca Hartwick, Stacy Itterman, which will be returning to this team very shortly, and then finally Aurelia Aoli. So you'll notice now that we have some divisional uh, pieces underneath us. So we have K to 3 for myself, for example. So we are the point person for our list of schools that we have, but we are also going to be more divisional. So if there is a school, and it might not be one of our schools, but there is a teacher, for example, that needs some support specific to our divisional areas, your point consultant person will reach out and kind of get you in contact. So we're trying to make sure that we can kind of support you in all areas as we move forward. So again, we are always thinking about our district priorities. So this session really is focusing on that student success. And of course, this is part of our TQS, demonstrating a professional body of knowledge. So really looking at those different instructional strategies so we can support the learning needs of all our students, and really thinking about all of the prior knowledge and cultural and linguistic background of our students. I always like to start our sessions with a big thank you. I know how hard it is right now in schools, and we want you to know from the EAL team how thankful and how we just want to thank you all for everything that you are doing for our students, for everyone in your community. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you take some time to appreciate how great you are. So today's session, we really gonna hope to hit some 3 pieces. So why is it important to meet with families of EAL? So really, for example, to build our student story and background and build that relationship with our students. Some things to consider. So maybe some appropriate messaging with our EAL parents, thinking about their various backgrounds and experiences. And then finally, we'll end with some resources that will support you in these upcoming EAL parent conferences this week that we know are top of mind. So we do have some updated terminology this year. No, we're not trying to confuse you with all of our acronym changes. There is a idea behind all of this. So you'll notice now it's EAL, so English as an additional language, and that's really that programming piece. So how are we supporting them through our lessons, activities, assessment? So that's student focus. Then we get to ELL, so that's our English language learners. So that's a focus when we talk about our students. You will still notice there is ESL, so English as a second language. So those are those courses that are in high school. And then finally, we have ELD, which is your English language development. And so you will notice when I was introducing all of our consultants, we now have an ELD consultant, Ariella, who is helping and supporting with those locally developed courses at the school level. So what does ELL mean? So it's students who speak an additional language and are not proficient in the English language. So really we're identifying them as needing language support, and really honoring that strength-based idea that they do have other languages that they are speaking at. In fact, I know I was doing a lot of refugee assessment, and they had 3, 4 languages that they were very proficient in. So honoring that piece. You will notice that they are then coded either a 301 or a 303. And so 301 would be our foreign-born students, and then we have our 303, which can be Canadian-born, but maybe their home language is, they're using their home language instead of English at home, for example, and they'll need some additional support with English. So why? Why do we want to work with our EAL parents? So research has said that, when we have engagement, we are going to have a better, successful student. And really, we need to honor that parents are the first educators, and they really play an integral role in this balance between home and school. And so it's really important that we're working together to help these students to be successful. Now, this is also a two-way street. So we don't want just the teacher delivering communication and always reaching out. We're really going to encourage that active participation with our EAL parents and really honoring what do they know and what can they let us know to really build that story of that student. And really, when we encourage this active participation, we're going to encourage the community as a whole to have that active participation. So as we come up to our parent-teacher conferences, you will probably get the questions, well, why is my child ELL? And so really, we need to explain to the parents that as we look at those benchmarks, they've been identified as really needing English language support in order to enhance their child's learning. And so really having that discussion between conversational language, so maybe they're really built that, right? That hello, the language that happens in the classroom quite easily, but really focusing on that academic language. And that's what we're building for those students, and really talking about with our benchmarks that level 3, 4, and 5 is where we are going to build that academic language. And these benchmarks that we are using are really a way to track that student's progress and let them know that this is going to take time. It will take up to 10 years, and really just allowing them that time to build that academic language. Also, as you talk about those benchmarks, look at that divisional benchmarks is really a trajectory. So if you notice when you have your, benchmark from grade 4 to 7, right? You are looking at, or 4 to 6, sorry. You're looking at by the end of grade 6 where they will go. So a grade 4 student is not going to accomplish the entire benchmark in that year. So as we think about our going forward and building our student story, and we look at our upcoming parent-teacher conferences, we really want to get an understanding of our students. So asking them about their school journey. What kind of schooling did they do before? Were there any gaps where they weren't attending school? Understanding where their home country is. What is the culture like? What are the languages? Really gives you that cultural portrait for of your student. And most importantly, it builds that relationship with both the parents and your student. And also talking about maybe there are some struggles, right? And so building that background information about that student is really going to help you as a teacher to support that student and help them to be successful. And really that relationship is going to help as well. So when are we going to be doing all of this? Of course, I talked about at our conferences this week that we would be starting this communication, but really it should be ongoing, right? A phone call, an email, just always keeping them update and trying to keep that two-way communication. And this is a great way at conferences where you can also get that parent input. What are their hopes and dreams for their student? Be able to review their growth that year and set some language targets for the year. Of course, we know we have our reporting periods that come in January and June, and that's where we'll be updating as well our benchmark strands and then any plans for transition. At the upcoming conferences, if you have started with new students that have been registered at your school or any previous students, you might want to think about your signatures. So those are on your ed forms where you can actually get through email digitally, or you can upload it if a physical signature is provided. You don't need to do that for the new students, but this is something you might want to do in your consultation and reviews. So at the upcoming conferences, you will have a conversation about your EAL student, and this is where you can really discuss and put in any notes that you had with those parents. And so again, this is just a little bit bigger view, but you can actually just click on that add, and then you can add any information, any detailed information that was shared at that parent-teacher conference. So now I'm going to hand it over to Dina, who's going to discuss the how.
Thanks, Kim. Good afternoon, everyone. So the how piece of this is how are we going to communicate this information with our parents of our EALs? And we're talking about when we're meeting our parents, of course, the number one priority is getting that student story, filling in those ideas and those blanks of who our students are and getting to know our students and getting to know our families. That is the number one priority for this set of parent-teacher conferences and moving forward. The second is how are we going to discuss both the content and the language objectives for our students? We're going to share with our parents the students' progress, both in content and in language. And it's important, the next slide will identify the difference between content and language. It's important to let them know what that difference is. We're going to share all the successes that they've had. We're going to share samples of their work so they actually get to see what they've achieved in class. And we're going to also always set targets for them to let the parents know how are we going to move on to the next step? What are some of the next language outcomes that we're going to target? Please allow time for parents to ask those questions. Please allow time for them to look at those samples that you've collected, because this might be very different than what they're used to. So having that space and the opportunity to ask questions in a low risk environment within the small parent-teacher conference is very important. And so, as I said earlier, when we're identifying the difference between content objectives and language objectives, our content objectives as educators, we know those so well. That is our curriculum. That is what we're teaching in every content area. Um, it is outcomes outlined by Alberta Education. It's very grade specific, and achievement is indicated on your assessments and on the progress report. This is what our students are learning. The language objectives is we are taking those language outcomes from the benchmarks themselves. It's based on the acquisition of an additional language. And it's also, as Kim said, it's a multiple year trajectory. So if the student is working on the benchmarks from grade 4 to 6, 7 to 9, 10 to 12, they have those years to achieve and to be successful in meeting those language outcomes. And the achievement on those language outcomes is recorded as the student's English language proficiency level. So how will the students share their learning? So language is the vehicle for them in order to reach the content area. And so when talking to parents, and by showing them the benchmarks, you're showing them the difference between the language objectives and the content objectives. So how do we get ready for those parent-teacher conferences? There is some work we need to do beforehand, and that is working on those relationships, calling and inviting them. Maybe they're unsure how to register for a parent-teacher conference. Maybe calling them ahead of time and explaining to them that we have these parent-teacher conferences, opportunities to have conversations. Can I pre-book you in for a time slot? Be aware that sometimes our parent-teacher conferences, whether they're in the evening or sometimes on Friday all day long, may not work for them. So we need to be a little bit flexible in providing opportunities for them, creating more time and space for them to come and meet with us. We can call them, we can email them. There's different ways we can text. When we are meeting with them, so during that parent-teacher conferences, always welcome them, always create that space that is low risk, that's safe. Sometimes they'll come to you not just with mom and dad and siblings. Maybe they'll come to you with grandparents. Maybe they'll come to you with aunts and uncles, because to them, that's the immediate family that is going to be supporting that student. And then following up with communication after the parent-teacher conferences, whether it's by phone call or by email, just so they know that this was not the only opportunity that they have to communicate with the classroom teacher, that the communication lines are open throughout the entire year, and that they are welcome to call and they are welcome to email throughout the year if they have any questions. And so just to review, always be okay that it might take a little bit longer than the allocated 10 or 15 minutes. And maybe, if you're looking at your lists right now, maybe see if you can extend that time for them, or for future parent-teacher conferences, see if you can extend that time with them. Be okay with them asking questions. Be okay with them bringing other family members to the meeting. It's so important for us to listen to their questions, and providing them with opportunities that if they want to use Google Translate, they can use Google Translate, or if they bring in a family member to help them translate, then that's okay with us. So it might not look exactly like all of our parent-teacher conferences that we would have, but it is what is needed for that family in order for them to truly understand who the students are, who their child is in this new learning environment. So some resources that we'd like to share with you is, of course, our lovely EPD. And we have a couple of wonderful ladies on our team who have diligently worked so hard for the last year or so on changing things around and making it a little bit more accessible. So always visit our EPD site, and somebody's going to add that link to help you get to it right away. And when on there, you can access our printable version of the benchmarks. And it's just very straightforward to read, and it's an overview document, and the link is right there as well. It can provide you with a one-pager overview for each strand, for listening, speaking, reading, and writing, and can help and support in the conversation with the parents as well, and can show where the students are on the continuum of support, whether there be a level 2 or a level 4, and what is the difference between a level 2 and a level 4. You have to use your professional judgment. If this is a new family that just arrived in our district, maybe this isn't the right time at this set of parent-teacher conferences to show them the benchmark. Maybe this is an opportunity to create those relationships. Maybe this is an opportunity to get to know who the student is, ask the questions, allow them to ask the questions, and then wait until the next set of parent-teacher conferences to introduce the benchmarks to them. You used your professional judgment to see what the families are ready for. Okay, interpreters. I know that a lot of us have questions about interpreters, and it looks a little bit different this year. And so it's not that we do not have interpreters. We do have interpreters, but they are to follow the new district guidelines. So interpreters, to access our interpreters list and information, the information, again, on the EAL EPD site, and right there where the arrow is the box you would click on for interpreters. Now, this information was sent out to principals and DLCTs, and it's just a quick summary overview of the email that was sent out, quickly going over when to use interpreters. And so it is to be, recommendation is that not to use interpreters for general information meetings like parent-teacher conferences. It is to use it for critical situations. So in lieu of bringing in and booking an interpreter, we're asking that we use various translation apps like Google Translate. So when I was doing the refugee assessments in the last few weeks, that's exactly what we use. We had no access to interpreters. We used Google Translate to support the communication and the gathering information from the parents. If you have a multilingual school-based personnel, district staff that are in your building and they are willing to help and volunteer, then that's a great place to go to. Also, when booking those interviews, allowing parents to bring in relatives, family, friends to help with that communication to translate as well. And Power School Messenger can help us translate written messages by sending a recorded voice message to a phone and in the home language of the family. And that how-to manual for PowerSchool communication is linked right there, and I believe it's also being placed in the chat. But when you get a copy, when we put a copy of this on EPD, that is a link down below that's underlined to help you access on how to do that school messenger as well. And so there's various opportunities for us to communicate also by sending information in an email. Parents and family members can translate that information using Google Translate in an email. But if you're meeting face to face, again, please try to use some of the recommendations that have been made. These are our new guidelines for interpreters for our district. If you have any questions, please make sure you go to your admin team or reach out to an EAL consultant and we can support you further. By clicking on that box in the EPD, you will get here to this information page where you can access the guidelines for interpreters and print a copy for yourself and review it. And that way you can, if you have any questions, you can start there before you move on and reaching out to one of us. If an interpreter is needed for a critical situation, a critical incident, you would go to your useful links under staff contacts, and from there you would open up the staff lists and see interpreters. That list is always being changed and reviewed and revised, so please always refer to that if you have any questions. Again, please reach out to our team if you do have questions or are unsure how to access that. Other resources and district supports that are available. You've got us at St. John's. You've got your 5 consultants here. Interpreters, we just reviewed that, as well as other district supports that we have is our teaching and learning team at St. Paul. We are always working with them collaboratively, so we are more than happy to work with your EAL consultant, with your science, with your social studies, math consultant, and come in and do a PG session, work with a teacher on what does it look like to take your content area and make it more accessible to your EALs in your classroom and in your building. We have our Bridge Foundation, our nest workers, and I believe every school was given information on how to access Bridge at this point of the year. And this year, our families are the ones who are reaching out. We still have our partnership with SIWA. We always have our district wellness workers that are school-based. And then we have back our Ukrainian cultural worker, Dmitro, who is more than happy to work with families and schools, depending on the needs that are present. And so as we're nearing the end of this session, just a reminder, our English learner parents have a high hopes for their children's scholastic well-being and wish to contribute to that success. When parents feel that they are part of an inclusive learning culture and have a clear awareness of their role in their child's learning, true partnerships can occur. And so we keep coming back to the point that we made earlier in the presentation. It's so important to have those relationships, to build those relationships with our parents. To create a community where they feel that they are free to reach out and ask their questions. They are here, they came to this country for many different reasons, but one of them was to provide the best opportunity for their students. And so it is our duty to work with them to ensure that we are communicating, that we have a partnership, and that truly is a community environment where all members are contributing to the student's success. At this time, we're going to stop the recording, and please feel free to put any questions you may have if we've missed anything or you need clarification on anything that was mentioned.